Good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome to the Black Interior Design Network. Welcome to Architectural Digest. My name is David Kaufman. I am the Global Digital Director of Architecture Digest, and we welcome you to a great chat today with three successful, entrepreneurial, inspirational, and familial women, African-American women, women who are working in the design and interior space. We're going to be talking today about a very important topic, balancing rest and relevancy, activism, entrepreneurship, and family life. How do you juggle it all? I'm thrilled to be here in New York, and we're joined by three wonderful ladies, and I'm going to just tell you all a bit about them. And when I introduce you, each of you, just remind everybody where you are speaking from today, if you don't mind. You told me a few minutes ago, but of course, I've already forgotten. So first, we're going to say hello to Keisha Gilchrist. Keisha Gilchrist is a highly respected, passionate, creative entrepreneur with a successful history of building and growing brands, scaling businesses, and responding intuitively to the needs of the interior design, contracting, real estate markets. And she's recently launched an online store. Hi, Keisha.
Hi, how are you?
Where do we find you today?
Today I'm in Maryland, near Annapolis.
Great. Welcome. I hope it's not as hot there as it is in New York. It probably is hotter.
We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here, so it's cooling down.
Okay, and a great color today. We like it. We have
Thank you.
We have Keonda Powell, creative in chief of Keonda Powell Design Studio. She's a creative composer whose mission is to provide each client with projects with an exclusively curated experience. She has a boutique decor studio based in Washington, D.C., so you're obviously in Washington, D.C., and you work with clients across the country. Hi, Keonda, welcome.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And Monica Jacobs Driscoll. Monica, where are you today? Where are we finding you?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia, hot Atlanta.
Great. Hi, Monica. You're an interior decorating and design ace. Your design has always been a constant part and passion of your life. You're born and raised in Baltimore. You're now in Atlanta. And your style could best be described as architecturally classic. If that's correct.
Yes.
So we're talking today just about kind of the age-old conundrum for folks like us, like you and me. How do you get it all done? How do you stay focused? How do you stay productive? How do you stay relevant? And most importantly, how do you stay sane? Balancing work, balancing activism, because we are in a moment of activism, and of course, balancing family. So I would love if each of you, and I'll just sort of kick it off, could just tell us a bit about how you started in the business and what sort of defines your business today. So since we're talking to Monica, let's start with Monica.
Hey, how I got into the business, honestly, was by a fluke. My current home that I live in, the builders came in for a yearly spot check to make sure things were going well. And when he came in, he's like, hey, I would love to give you an offer of your house being the model home for the subdivision, because they were building other homes, but they didn't have anything to show at the time. And I'm like, let's talk about that.
You designed your home yourself at that time?
I designed my home myself. I picked out all the selections, and then I had it furnished. So when he came in, he was just very like, who did this? Who? I'm like, I did. And so we then built a contract, which was supposed to be for 6 months, but it wound up being a year. And mind you, my daughter was only 2 at the time. And so just keeping it clean, I had to deal with, realtors. They had a code to get in, and it just kind of manifested into me thinking what else I wanted to do. I was a marketing manager at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I came to this roadblock where I was just kind of like, what else would I like to do with my time? And kind of realized I was really heavily into decor, even though I never thought I would really be a designer and be into the business with clients. I've been asked several years, would you like to be a designer? And I'm like, no way, I don't want to deal with clients. I don't have time for that. I just like doing this. And it just kind of manifested. I started making cards and just started going to like events at ADAC, and which is how I met Kia, and Big became a part of Black Interior Designers Network. And it just manifested into this beautiful thing where now this is my life. This is what I do every day. I love it.
I'm a pretty professionally content person, but not fully, because I don't make money fully using my creativity. I don't support myself. So I have really high respect. I think the deepest respect for people who are able to be in their creativity and earn money and to support themselves for that. So I just wanted to ask you in that spirit, when someone came to you and said, wow, this is a beautiful space. Wow, you've done a great job. And wow, you could earn some money from that. How did that feel? What was that feeling for you like?
At first it was like, in the beginning, I've realized that I didn't take much effort or not effort. I didn't think about it hard, but now as I'm getting more into my craft and knowing what my design aesthetic is and just seeing how things are flowing and people like, oh, you did all this. And I think, you know what, you don't give yourself enough credit for all of you kind of just created out of nothing. I really had no roadmap and really just built ways and met with other people and just figured out, hey, we got this beautiful thing called the internet. We should be able to figure something out in this world, and so really I just create goals, I write them down, and I really try to come back and look at them and say, hey, okay, you mentioned that you wanted to do this. Why aren't you here? And what other things are you lacking in to help you get there? So, I figured I needed an assistant and now I have 2 assistants. And, you just really take it on every day like a rodeo.
We're going to get back to that. We'll get back to that in a little bit because I want to talk about growing your business. Let's talk to Kionda. So Kionda, tell us a bit about how you got into business and what your business and practice is like today.
Sure. So I detoured to design, although it's always been what I wanted to do. Like I really intended to go to study design in school undergrad, but ended up not doing it that way. So I did go to Marymount University in Arlington, Virginia for the master's program to study interior design. While there, I worked, I had a few part-time jobs, which was crazy. I worked at Pottery Barn in retail. I worked for a hotel company, Choice Hotels, because I wanted to get into hospitality design. Prior to that, I worked in child welfare. So I worked for a nonprofit while trying to make the decision to go back to school, and made that complete switch, like left a job, took an internship that really only paid a stipend for a summer and had to figure it out after that. They eventually hired me at that hotel company, which was great because I'm like, okay, I have to make money. This isn't going to work out. So that's the route that I came into it. So I worked in hospitality design for the hotel company. I then worked with a smaller design, build, and fabrication company that did a lot of restaurants and lounges and clubs and things like that. And then 3 years ago, decided to do my own thing, which wasn't necessarily the plan, but I kind of fell into it and I've been kicking it ever since. So focusing on mostly residential, but I also have a good number of light commercial projects that I work on. And I kind of keep that balance, which has been good for me, definitely with the ebbs and flows of the economy and the pandemic, et cetera. So
Great.
That's where I am now.
Keisha, tell us a bit about your business and where you are and how things are going and how you got there.
So my business combines real estate, interior design, and general contracting. And my story is a lot like Monica's in that I sort of fell into it. I started out as a marketing career as well. And I realized very quickly that there was a glass ceiling that I was not going to be able to break there. So I first started out just looking for ways to supplement my income so that I could maintain my livelihood. I learned about real estate and spent a lot of time there. And like Monica, bought a new house, decorated it, had the builder come in and say the exact same thing to me. They were giving tours of my own home and people started asking me to do their homes. So at first, what was a hobby, I quickly figured out a way that I could make it a business. And it's funny because interestingly, it's funny like how the path that your life takes, because I wanted to major in art and I had the parents who were like, absolutely no, business degree is not going to happen on our dime. And I kind of ended up right back where I wanted to start. Most recently, within the last 2 years, I got my general contractor's license. And so I run a crew on my own projects.
That's great. I want to just, we're talking a lot about, we're supposed to talk about activism and life balance, but first, I think what's really inspirational to me, because, in the world we live in today, is that, especially for young people, especially for young Black people, they need to see success stories. They need role models. They need to see people who are sustaining their own businesses, making money, like keeping their families, paying their mortgages, doing the things that everybody else does. So, and that's all about, one of the interesting things that we write about here at AD a lot is how to sustain your business, how to turn the passion for design into an actual business. So if you could just tell me, we can start with Keisha, because you're right here, but in front of me, you're all in front of me, but Keisha's a bit bigger on the screen. If you could just tell me a bit about how big is your business, how many people are in your firms, and how do you maintain the balance of growth and sort of like what for you is sort of smart growth, intelligent growth. So tell me a bit about the size of your business and the sort of the smarts and the intelligence around growing your business.
So right now I have one full-time employee and about 10 subcontractors across different fields that I work with regularly. But we really function together. There is not a day that I don't talk with each of them and meet with them weekly to go over our several projects. We run multiple projects simultaneously. So the employee that I have is, hi Dawn, she is in charge of maintaining our project schedule, making sure orders are fulfilled and delivered on time, and procurement. I think that we're at a point now where we're growing and I need to add on another employee because I'm back to working at 5 o'clock in the morning and stopping around 12.
So what made you decide to take that plunge and get that first employee?
At the point that I had kids, I wasn't able to produce as quickly as I would like to. You know, I'm the person that, you know, you send me a text message, you send me an email, I like to respond instantaneously, and it freaks me out when I can't. And so trying to juggle all of the different things, now I'm also doing carpool and activities, and I just wanted to maintain my level of productivity.
And of course, your level of commitment to your family.
Exactly.
So I see both of our other ladies nodding their head. Monica, tell us a bit about the size of your business and what does intelligent growth look like to you?
Okay. I have one part-time assistant. I have one intern because I get one from a school situation, which I think would be great for you ladies as well. I also have recently, more so, my husband has started taking a bit more interest in more of another portion that we want to start kind of together. He does wholesaling. So that's always, of course, been an interest of mine, and flips and things of that nature. So kind of, we've been taking on a role of doing a flip together so that we can see how that would go. But I really decided that I needed an intern when I started getting an influx in calls and projects. People were asking for things, and I'm like, okay, you cannot do this on your own. You need it. Somebody has to run the day-to-day while you're over here designing and, you know, generating more connections and communications with vendors. I work very heavily with about 2 contractors. So what happens is they usually call me for their projects when their clients say, hey, I need a designer, they're giving me mine. And when I need a contractor, that's the 2 people I first look to. Hey, are you available? What's on your books? And we in turn, so my phone and door of business is always, thank God, ringing and opening. So that's when I really decided that I need to get someone in here that can help me with, like, you know, keeping up with social media, which is so important. I get a lot of potential clients, or it has become clients, from social media. That's the new wave of being in your DM and saying, hey, you know, I'm interested. So just dealing with that aspect and just trying to get more of my processes streamlined. So that's what me and my assistant spend a lot of time doing.
Was it hard for you to sort of admit to yourself and then, of course, ask for help? Do you feel like you have to do it all?
Sometimes, but you know what? I am really learning to let go and give. Like, if I see that someone else can do it, I'm like, hey, great, do that. I don't want to do that part because I have 1,000 other things to do. So no, it's just really for me, I guess I'll say yes and no, for me to find the right people that really want to stick around and have the betterment interest of what you're trying to build, because everybody doesn't see that vision and everybody has their own objectives of what they want to do in their lives. So just trying to fine tune that and figure out if what you're offering for them as far as the position is giving them, you know, some type of opportunity, or just even if it's for a short time, they're learning something. I'm very big on that, trying to make sure my people learn, so that if they do go to their own arena, hey, I've given you some tools, but you've helped me at the same time. It's a give and take in life. Yeah.
Great. So Keonta, tell us a bit about your business, the size and how it's grown and what you would like to see it become.
Sure. So I'll kind of give a little bit of a backstory which relates to this. So I recently had my son this past December. So he'll be turning 6 months old next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's his name?
His name is Journey. He's currently with my mother. Thank goodness for the village. So I knew
my mother's with my twins right now. So
I mean, you have to just love them for all the help that they support and that they provide. I knew that he was coming at least 9 months, right? So I should have been planning for help at that time. But for whatever reason, I think I was struggling with the trust factor and having to invest the time into getting people up to speed, especially when I didn't feel like my systems were tight enough, and kind of having this paralysis of perfection, almost thinking that things have to be a certain way before I could then get this on board or that have a person join the team. Well, the child came and it became an immediate need. I really didn't take maternity leave. I really worked literally as I was preparing to give birth, was still taking calls in the hospital bed. And
you're back up giving birth.
And that's exactly how it happened, David, exactly, word for word. And I knew that I needed help. So people did reach out, and I went back through emails and found a couple of interested people and apologized for not responding months ago, and had interviews and ended up bringing on someone part-time who has been helping with more of the streamlined day-to-day things. One of the big pain points for me was keeping up with potential leads, and that's devastating to business if I can't keep that going. So
because it's not just about the business you're doing now, it's about the business in 6 months, in a year and a half.
Exactly.
Especially because the kind of projects that you three work on take a long time. They're long lead projects.
Exactly. So she was able to come in and help me really streamline that with the use of my website, which I spent some time updating during the pandemic, using those as kind of like the frontline tools to really engage with potential leads. So she's been really good with that, and then also helping to source things. I also have another young lady who helps me, and she's from Brazil. She's here doing other work, but she helps me part-time. She has a degree in architecture, engineering, and design. So she's kind of like a triple threat in that way. And she's really hands-on with a lot of my design execution needs, renderings, modeling, et cetera. So they've been really, really extremely useful to me. I definitely want to do growth in a responsible way, but I'm also very timid and scared and intimidated by the process of growing and making sure I have enough for everyone long term. So I've been doing the part-time people right now, and I hope that I can spend some time to really tighten up my process and systems and overall business so that I could have someone at least full-time with me going forward.
I think that's great. I think that, there is sort of, I hate to use this cliche of sort of the strong Black woman, but which is it's very true, but it's also a bit of a cliche, but it also feels a little bit unfair. You know what I mean? Like nobody says a strong white woman. You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to sort of do it all, handle it all, and never sort of ask for help. And we talk a lot about mental health right now in the African American community, and this is part of it. Just the feeling that we have to do it all. And I think that from my experience, part of that comes from the fact that we had, particularly female role models who sort of did do it all. My mom's white, but my grandmother's Black. So I had a white role model and a Black role model, female role model, who just did it all. And I think that it's a great sort of totem or symbol, this strong woman, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily reflect that people are very three-dimensional and nobody can really do it all. You know what I mean? So speaking about race and gender and all the things we've been talking about the last year, we just passed the anniversary of George Floyd and the kind of reinvigoration of Black Lives Matter. We've spoken a lot about these issues, and we've addressed them a lot at Arc Digest, particularly some of the work we did last year with the BIDN and the Iconic Home, and the work we're doing for the coming year. And I'm actually very proud to be part of that work, and the fact that AD has taken this quite seriously and done quite a bit of effort. But we still have to ask the question: it's a year on. Have things changed? Do you guys feel that the atmosphere is better? Is the industry more welcoming? What's been your experience? Let's go back to Keisha.
I do feel like things are changing, and I hope that it's sustainable. Definitely more welcoming. I find that my client base has become much more diverse within the past 2 years. And I appreciate that. And the clients that I do have who are not of African American descent, they're asking the questions, and they're asking me, are you okay? And how do you feel about this? And what can I do to support you? So in business.
Can I ask you a question? Do you like that? Do you feel comfortable with that? Do you want that kind of interaction? How do you feel about that?
I do, because I think that the conversation is what is going to spark change. So, I think that, change is built upon uncomfortable conversations. So it's not always comfortable to explain your feelings or yourself to someone who may not understand or have the same experiences. But I think that you can easily people read and understand when it's coming from a good point. And for the sake of progress, I'm happy to have the conversation.
That's good. I feel the same way. I really echo what you said. What about you, Kianda? How do you view the world a year after George Floyd in your industry?
Yeah, I'm glad that Keisha mentioned the uncomfortableness in the conversations, because there's a lot of that on all sides. I think, it's not comfortable for us as Black people to necessarily ruffle the feathers, right? Like we've been trying to assimilate, fit in, not make anyone feel uncomfortable, not step on a toe, not do whatever,
we take what we can get.
We take what we can get, and we want there to not be these obvious call outs of what's different. We want to fit in. We want to stand out too, but we want to, we want to be accepted in our industry, in our communities, in our environment. And so I don't know, that's been one thing, because we've been getting a lot of calls, emails, media posts, Instagram posts about, check out these Black designers, and, these Black designers you should know. And it's just been it's been mind blowing to me. I was actually just sitting and reflecting on the fact that, wow, like this man passed away at the hands of police brutality, essentially, and it changed a whole industry that had nothing to do with that.
Let me ask you a quick question, if you don't mind. Have those emails and those Instagram DMs and those reaching outs, do those translate into business? Does it translate into commissions? Does it translate into money?
I honestly cannot say that it's translated into money. It's translated into awareness. It's translated into just the relevancy that we're talking about here. Keisha, I know we both were in that Wall Street Journal article. Her beautiful kitchen was featured in it, so having people having that exposure it's good to have. You just hate that it had to happen like that. But I guess that's just how things happen in time. There's a major event and then it sparks change. And so I'm glad to see that there's been more interest. I agree with Keisha. I hope that it is sustainable. It still feels weird though. It does feel like, are we doing this because we're Black, or are we really looking at the talents that we all possess? And I think that the Black community has an immense amount of talent, like the Iconic Home, other projects that I've seen, whether it be virtual or in person with the show houses, amazing. It's just been amazing to see. And I wish that we had more resources to be able to showcase that more, because a lot of it boils down to not having the resources to participate in these types of projects, or not having the connections with an Architectural Digest or what have you. So I hope that we can continue to make those connections so that we see more of us, not just us, Asian, like everyone. Like I think we need to see more.
I think we talk about this idea of the imposter syndrome, that we're not supposed to be there, we haven't earned it. And I think it's, for me personally, still, I think I'm a lot older than you lovely young ladies, but it never goes away. I think unfortunately we've been sort of trained for centuries to feel like, other folks are better just because they're white or because they're a man. That's just how it is. And that, but at the same time, sometimes I ask myself if I have a feeling like that, like you just described, like, well, would a white person feel that way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's okay. I think it's okay to question. I think it builds. I always think it's really okay to question. It builds you up, and it helps you with self-reflection. But that's a real, the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome is real, and it's okay to say that we have it. You know what I mean? It's fine.
I'm so glad you said that, David, because I feel like that's definitely something that hit me as soon as all of this started to pop off. And the fact that you said that will save me at least 30 minutes in therapy later on next week. So I don't have to talk about that anymore. So thank you.
I also had an interesting encounter with a white client of mine. I had posted something that said, it was a meme, but in a nutshell, it said, I'm tired of being the strong Black woman. I shouldn't have to, I'm exhausted. I want to feel taken care of, and, all of these things. And my client commented on it and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you feel like this." And actually, let me go back. It didn't say I'm tired of being a strong Black woman. It said I'm tired of being the strong woman. So when she commented, I'm like, do you feel this way as well? Because we're having these conversations now. And interestingly enough, she said she doesn't.
Wow.
That's great to hear.
And she said, and she was sorry. She apologized for not feeling that way. She was, she felt so sorry that I do. But what's even more, I guess, it was a self-check for me. I was surprised. I thought that this was just a woman thing. I thought that all women felt like that. So now to know, I always knew that our load was heavier, but I still felt that it was a load that we shared with all women. You know what I mean? Because I'm not just Black, I'm a woman and I'm Black, so it was a very interesting conversation.
Monica, we'll get to you in 1 second, but I just want to say, Keisha, I love that example, because I think so often when we're discussing these issues, especially with white people who aren't Black, they talk about microaggressions and all these sort of jargon now, these terms. And it's really hard for folks to really understand what exactly that means. Literally, what does that mean? And the example that you just gave is such a beautiful example, because it literally shows what that means, what the burden is, what the difference is. And you're not blaming the world, but that's the way I think that you educate is give really specific examples. This is what that means. And I love that example. So thank you for sharing with everybody. Now, off to Monica. Monica, I forgot what our question was. Oh yes, our question was, a year after George Floyd, how are you viewing all the change? Is it real? Is it sustainable? How's it impacted your life?
It's definitely real. I haven't had anything directly done to myself, but I have, great colleagues or friends who, they may be in upper management level positions and had to deal with these big conversation and all of these initiatives of how they can make it, something where they can talk about and have awareness. And even I'm a part of another design group in which there are a lot of different ethnicities in that group. And I remember when all of this happened, and you remember they had the whole thing of putting online the blackout day, where you just put on your page something like a Black picture. And, it was just this big thing between me and my best friend. And I'm like, I really hope that this group has some type of something to say. Not that I wanted them to, because it's very diverse. However, there are other, there are Caucasians in that group. So I just wanted to see what was going to be the tone. And I'll never forget, once they did post something saying that they support it, and it just gave me this feeling of okay, well, at least they're talking about it, So then it becomes this thing of how can we be a community that connects with each other more? So even, for instance, me and another designer, she's Caucasian, and we actually decided that we were going to have dinner with each other, maybe once a month, with her husband and then my husband, and we kind of just get to know each other, because maybe the whole problem is we just don't understand each other, because we're not living together. We're not in the same areas together. So it's just a disconnect. And so just even having that type of conversation. Also, the group that I'm mentioning, I am now a chair member on the board. And I remember one of my old colleagues actually dropped out because during the COVID time, I think that they had an interest in being in it, and they didn't see anybody of color. And now I'm actually on there. So, just getting our feet more in the door, and like you said, seeing more of our faces and allowing people to know, hey, we all have design in us regardless of the color of our skin. And that's just, what I want to be able to show my daughter and other, not just my daughter, but anyone who is interested in this arena. Sorry, my dog is definitely going to he's going to bark.
I just want to say, if you hear some screaming children, those are mine. And I'm debating, should I go out and tell them to be quiet, but then they're just going to run in and make even more mess. So if you hear screaming kids, and we're all doing the balance. I want to also now go on sort of touch upon self-care and mental health, and making sure that you guys are staying well. How do you, in the face of a thriving business, a growing business, partners, spouses, children, small children, keeping your homes together, of course, also looking after your parents because we're a community. What do you do to keep yourselves in check and to keep yourselves healthy as humans, as women, as Black women, and as designers? Keisha, how do you keep yourself centered?
Well, to be honest with you, this is an area that I struggle in still. I definitely sprint. I don't pace myself. So I tend to go 150 miles an hour until I burn out, and then I reset, and then I do it all over again. So like, you'll see that, I take a lot of mini vacations, and it's really because I have to, because I've burnt myself to the limit, and my body is literally telling me you need some time. I'm thankful that I can do that, and I can do that with my family, my husband, and my kids. But yeah, to say that, I go into a room and I say it's mommy time, and I'm able to close the door. No, my kids are literally locked in their rooms right now, and I'm like, please, just give me 30 minutes. So it's definitely a work in progress for me.
Oh, David, you're muted.
David, you're muted.
I muted myself to keep the kids quiet. How do you keep yourself centered, and how do you deal with balancing mental health and making sure you're okay?
That was to me, right?
That's Kiana, yes.
Okay. I don't know that I am. I'm doing all that I can right now, and this is still a new normal for me. I am a single mom, entrepreneur, and it's rough. It's tough. I mentioned therapy earlier, so that's something that is standing weekly, and I absolutely love those sessions to just talk it through and release. Now that my son is getting a little bit older, I feel like his independence is allowing me to feel more confident in exploring with him or going out with him. And so now I'm actually trying to plan a little mini vacation this summer for us, to be determined if I'm taking my mom with me. We'll see. And I don't know, like there really is, I'm really in a period of time in my life where I'm really still trying to map all of that out. But I was really interested in what Keisha had to say, because I'm like, I'm gonna jump in one of those vacations with her one day, because I need that.
You know what, Kai, I forgot to say one thing though. I think what has really helped me as I navigate through this, I have 11-year-old twins. And so I should have it down by now, but I feel like with every season they change and they have different needs and experiences. And it's like a total new learning curve for me. But I really rely on the help of, my sister circle. My husband is also an entrepreneur, and he works at even a faster pace than I do. So, we often bump heads with our schedules and who needs to do what for their businesses. So, carpool when your child becomes school age, it's necessary. Having those sister moms who you can call and say, my meeting is running over, can you please pick up my kid? That happens a lot. So I'm grateful for the community and my mom especially.
Yeah. What I hear from you is that you know how to ask for help, but more importantly, you know how to take it. You know how to receive it.
Yes.
And I learned that. That was my biggest lesson as a parent as well, is asking for help, but more importantly, receiving the help.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the inside, I'm still like, like it doesn't feel good, but it is definitely necessary.
Yeah.
Monica, did you answer this question already? I'm so sorry. I've had a long day with all these kids and work, so.
For me, I used to actually work for the Decorating Den. Shout out to Miss Jennifer, Miss Barbara. And one thing that I learned from them was to do not work on the weekend. So that is really like, I have been making that a rule of thumb, and it's been working. I think what happens is you have to really set parameters with your clients and let them be aware of like, hey, I am off on the weekends. I don't do any, so that they know. And so that's been giving me a better trajectory on having time with my husband, having time with my daughter. I really try my best not to do work after a certain hour in the evening. It depends on what I have that's due within that week span. And definitely like just like little mini vacations. Me and my husband are going out of town tomorrow. You know, dates. I try to do things like that. Just something just to disconnect. I realize I have a hard time disconnecting from work, especially if I have access to a laptop. So I try my best to like, not tonight. I'm not doing it. Like last night we watched a movie together. I was intentionally like, hey, I want to watch a movie, you know, just regular things. So just really trying to give time. And even for instance, this was a conversation between me and my assistant the other day. I said, hey, one day next month in July, for real, let's plan this. Let's have a day where we just go to eat and we go get facials and we don't even talk about work. I don't want to talk about it. I want to have a day where I disconnect, because it's literally like every day my brain is, you know, I can roll the decks, just have like diary of the mouth of all these things I have to do. So I think it's very important. You know, I realized that work was like becoming a thing, like when I'm up on the computer at night with my husband sitting there and like, you know, I'm like, okay, this is starting to get a bit too much. So I encourage you to try to find time. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm a workaholic, so I totally get it. But sometimes I just say, you know what, I can't right now. I just got to do what's best for the family, and this stuff will be there. And what I realize is most of the clients are very understandable of that, because they're dealing with their own things in life, and they're really, I mean, they're in a rush because they want it done, but usually it's something that is holding something up in a little stance anyway. So you have a little wiggle room to some degree.
One of the things we wanted to talk about here was activism. I wanted to ask each of you, I mean, do you feel like activists, and what does activism as in the interior design world and activism as a Black female interior designer, what does that look like to you? So maybe Keonda, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I've never considered myself to be an activist. And I'm a member of a Greek-led organization that does a lot of activism. So in that realm, yes. But in the design industry, it's been interesting to figure out and carve out what that looks like. I think in doing events like this, speaking about us as Black designers, what we bring to the table, adding more awareness to what we bring is a part of that activism in its own way. But there's definitely, I'm not out, you know, protesting and picketing or anything outside of, you know, wherever, the design centers or anything like that. But definitely just using my voice and my platform to just share my opinion on what I think is right for us in this industry, and how we can move forward.
Just kind of just doing you.
Doing me, yeah. So it naturally will fit in. So there isn't like we have to carve out too much time for it, because I mean, these types of panels and events, they're not too frequent, but when they come, I do like to participate, because I think that it's important for us to talk about things like this and for others to see us doing the same.
What about you? What about you, Monica? Do you feel like you're an activist, and what does activism look like to you?
I don't feel like I'm an activist, but I am an aware person. I do try to support things in small ways. I didn't do any protests here in Atlanta, things like that. But like, for instance, like Kia's beautiful lights that she just created, I want to support her and make sure I get one in my design so that people can know about her. So I am very big on just making sure that I give a voice or a space for people of my own color who have done some great and awesome things, and I would like to showcase their talents. So I can't say I'm fully on, but I definitely listen to things, and you know, I will give my suggestions and different things, and be a part, probably more in the background side of giving a voice for us.
What about you, Keisha? What does activism look like to you in your professional life and also in your personal life?
Professionally, like Monica said, I try to incorporate works from African-American artists and make my clients aware of features that they may not have already been, you know, aware of. In my day-to-day life, I think activism shows up in just me not biting my tongue, you know, speaking truthfully about things that happen to me and to my kids, and using my platform, as Kia said, and, you know, posting things that I believe in and speaking on that. Here recently, I find myself being more vocal about experiences that are racist, that show racism, and I speak on it and I call it out to the person who I'm, you know, encountering with, and I walk away feeling better, because maybe that person doesn't know, you know what I mean? And maybe I'm educating them and maybe that wasn't their intention. But until I feel like if I or we continue to not say these things, we'll just stay in this space.
I think that that's really commendable, Keisha. I actually had an experience like that myself recently, where I DM'd somebody who's, who looked, I don't know this person, but I follow this person, and she's kind of groovy and cool. She's white, and she has lots of Black Lives Matter, iconography on her Instagram. And I asked her about something she'd put on her Instagram about 2 or 3 months ago that I thought was really important. I'd really thought about it. It was really made a difference in my life, and I didn't remember what she said. And I said, would you mind just telling me what you said? Because it really made a difference to me. It was really, I've been thinking about it a lot in my daily life. Like something you said made an impact on me. And I just want to remember exactly what it was. I'm not going to say what her response was, but her response was unintentionally, it wasn't that she was trying to, but she said something that I was shocked at what she wrote to me. And I didn't know what to do, because I think why I'm saying, Keisha, that there's a lot of bravery in what you just said is that when you respond to somebody for their, truly racist remark, you expose yourself, you make yourself vulnerable, you expose yourself to them, biting back to you and making that wound even worse. But when we don't respond, then that wound festers inside, and there's no closure. So I just want to say that what you said to me, what you just said, Keisha, about being vocal and not sitting quiet, to me feels very brave, and I want to commend you.
Thank you. Thank you. And when it involves your children, it just hits differently as well. I recently had an encounter with my kids, and it was their first experience with racism. And they were upset and they were confused about why they were treated that way. And I just said, come on, let's pack up. We're going to go right back over there and have this conversation with this person who said this to you. And I feel like they looked at, they think I'm super mom now. They're like, are you changing your clothes because you're going to hurt her? No. We were in the house, but
my mom had 2 little half Black kids, and she did exactly the same thing, and she's white, so believe me,
yeah.
I come from that mother too. So
right, exactly.
So treat her children badly. So I want to talk about looking forward, looking towards the future. This has been a big year. Again, we're talking about change. So let's fast forward to a couple years from now. What would real change look like to each of you? What would that look like and feel like? Monica.
Are you speaking as far as just in general, or the business, or what?
In the business, what would real change look like to you? Obviously, at AD last year, we did this incredible iconic home. That was a lot of change for us, and I know the kind of work we're doing internally at the company because I'm part of it. So I do see change. So, but what would change look like? What would and what does change look like to you in the industry as Black women?
I would honestly say, just from my time from starting to now, and when we do start gathering more, once the pandemic gets more sustained, maybe just even seeing more faces of color in the stores. I go to a lot of events, and it may only be one person, and I can kind of tell why. Sometimes you're going to showrooms and you can feel the energy that you're not as welcome. So maybe just changing that dynamic and realizing that, like both the moms said, we have a great voice or space in this arena as well. We just want to be able to show our talents and provide for our clients the same way plenty of people have been doing for over time. So just definitely being able to get together more and not feel like you're kind of on the outside, but you're in more of the inside. Like I said, I think that's going to be definitely where we be more vocal about it and have more platforms like this and things of that nature.
And end of the only one syndrome, as they call it. You're constantly the only one. So it'd be great if you weren't the only one. Right. What about you, Keisha? What besides an end to only oneism, what would change look like to you in this industry?
I agree with more customer service in the showrooms on sensitivity. That's big for me. Very rarely do I walk into showrooms and feel comfortable. More often not than I actually do. I think seeing people who look like me in more spaces, on more TV shows, behind product lines. Just more accessibility for us. And I think that's going to take people taking the time to find us, and platforms like this definitely help.
Yeah, I mean, I recently, I've been with this company for a little while now, and one of the first things I asked for was business cards, and somebody, a white person said, oh, do people still use that? Do we still need that? And I'm like, yes, I need business cards. You know, when I walk into a room, people, number one, I have my mother's last name, so I have a very Jewish sounding name. And number two, people don't expect me to look like me, and I need to often prove who I am, and it shouldn't be like that, but that is the way it is. And we just hired an amazing young African-American woman, and the first thing I did was get her business cards, because I know that, you know, not that she needs them, but she needs them. You know,
Right.
People are going to not treat her the same way necessarily coming from our brand as they would a young white woman. So it's a sad fact, but it's true. I want to have those, you know. Kionda, what would change look like to you?
Ultimately, we wouldn't be having these type of conversations, right? It would just be, we are just doing what we do, and it's plentiful.
We'd be drinking wine instead. We'd be at the bar.
Right? Like there would be something else to talk about. But I wanted to kind of go back to what Keisha mentioned about supporting Black artists and designers in her business. It's sourcing and specifying. And that's definitely something I feel like a lot of us try to do without even trying. This is something that we do. We want to support one another. Because we don't see a lot of that out there. And so I definitely want to see more of the Black artists, designers, artisans who have product lines. So the Nakia line with Ngala, you know, that, you know, who promotes that? I want to see more promotion of that. Who has to pay for that in order for that to show up in the pages so that everyone can have access to that, and it's not, you know, a hidden gem. I'm not saying that hers is, but you know, there are a lot of artisans out there who don't have that backing and support, and really can't get off the ground what they need. So, and if, you know, they had more orders, and maybe that'll help the bottom line with the price, because they have the production numbers coming in that they need, so they can then afford to buy those things, right? So that's the other part of it. The showroom thing, I mean, I think that a lot of us will share in that sentiment that it doesn't always feel warm and welcoming. And what I will say to that is, you know, if we want to build the relationships to then spend our dollars, then we have to build the relationships. And that goes both ways, meaning welcome us so that we can then start that conversation, show us the line so that we can figure out other products and resources to share with our customer base. So we do those things, and we won't have to have these conversations, and it all will be well, right? And then we can have the wine that you talked about.
Exactly. So what I hear a lot about from all three of you is a sense of community and sisterhood. How important is it, and how do you intentionally go about supporting each other in this industry, particularly because it is, at the end of the day, a competitive industry, and there's a finite pool of resources and clients and money. So how important is sisterhood to community, and how do you foster that? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I'll go. I feel like, you know, what is for me is for me. What's for Keisha is for Keisha. What's for Monica is for Monica, right? What's for David is for David. It's like there's enough out here for all of us. And so I think that this whole idea of competition, I'm not going to say it's out the window, but we're definitely in a space and a place and time where the community is so much more exciting to work with, and there's less pressure that way. Like I could call Keisha, I probably haven't in a while, and say, hey, I'm looking for a resource, and she does the same thing with me, you know, and I think that's perfectly fine. It's not like I don't have to hoard what I have and my knowledge and not share it with her because I don't want her to, you know, no, make your money, sis, I'll make mine too. Like there is enough out here for all of us, and I think that is the mentality I see a lot of people taking on. And it's not just within our Black community. I see that across the board. I could reach out to several designers that I know for resources, and they're more than happy to share. There might be some that aren't, but more than not, there are many more that will share. And I think that's great. And I like that. And I want to see that continue.
And what about you, Monica? How do you sort of foster that spirit of generosity and community while still trying to, you know, keep your business afloat and making sure that you have what you need?
I actually talk to a lot of different designers. People will text me, you know, hey, Monica, do you know where I can find blah, 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 blah. I mean, we're always all sharing information. Hey, do you have a, you know, window treatment installer or, you know, wallpaper installer? So I've never had a problem getting a resource that I really needed. Most people will just give the answer, and then I in turn do the same thing, because I feel like it's a give and take type of community. You know, you're going to have to scratch somebody else's back and they'll scratch yours. And and the more you give, the more you'll receive. I'm really big on that anyway. So I'm an open book. People know they can call me and I will give out probably my whole business thing. I mean, not to some degree, but for the most part, I realize that what I have built and created is first and foremost an alignment of God and the people that I'm surrounded by. So therefore nobody can take that from me, but I am also the spirit of a giver. So I'm always trying to, hey, you need this, let me know. And then when I get opportunities, I invite other designers, hey, if you have some extra time, I can pay you to be on my project just so you can get more experience, or, just different things. So I've helped a lot of people in entry level or just, they have questions. How do I get started? I've met with people at coffee shops just to say, hey, this is what I did. This is what you don't want to do. Maybe you can figure out another way, and and so on. So it's definitely been very informative. I've been shown nothing but love pretty much from anybody who I've asked for help from.
And Keisha, we'll end this question with you.
Well, when I first started, I didn't see anybody who looked like me. I don't want to age myself, but this was a long time ago. And I would look around and I would literally be the only person. And I think organizations like Biden have brought us together along with social media. With that, we are able to connect in ways that we haven't been able to connect before. And you can show support in simple ways, from liking and reposting and celebrating someone's success when they launch a product line. Like Kai said, we exchange information all the time. And I think that most designers, including myself, you feel like even if we use the same thing, everybody's approach is going to be different. So she can have the same lamp in a room and it's not going to look the same as the lamp in my room. You know what I mean? So I think that the more you have, the more you should give.
Something I want to just focus on, because I like to hear these kinds of things. What is a project that each of you are working on right now that you're really excited about? What's something that you're just jazzed to be tackling right now? I see all of you smiling. So Kianda, you have a big smile. It might be a big smile too, but we'll start with Kianda and her smile.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to wrap up all of this pandemic work that's been delayed, number one, but a new project that I've started recently, it's in Virginia, and it's a yoga studio by day with a cafe downstairs and a bar lounge at night, with tapas and other small appetizers and stuff. So I'm really excited about that space.
What about you, Monica?
I'm gonna say I have a couple, but I'm gonna narrow it down to one. I have a workspace, office space, kind of like a collab space. It's supposed to be for the newer generation, the millennials to come in and do work, and it's really big. They want it really cool, and so I'm thinking of some colors and paneling that I want to do just to make it a really fun spot. But it's a pretty big project, so I'm excited.
Keisha, you're working on quite a few projects, I'm sure. So what's something that, as we say in California, where I come from, what's something you're really stoked about?
Well, I've recently began partnering with designers and working with them on the contracting side. So right now I'm working with a designer on a basement and an office remodel. And I'm really excited about that because I think that I can service designers from a contracting perspective in a different way, because I know everything that we're looking for, so I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about trying to really finish my own home. With the pandemic has been incredibly busy with work, and I'm intentionally trying to slow down and scale so that at least by next year, I won't be living in a house with no furniture.
I actually wanted to ask each of you, as we're getting towards the end of our hour, which is kind of hard to believe, but I wanted to ask each of you, how has the pandemic changed your business, and what do you think, what of those changes, what do you think is going to be most long lasting? Keisha, we'll start with you because you were just talking about it already.
Well, I find that the pandemic has definitely made me busier. I've had many more projects. It has taught me how to juggle and balance more efficiently, but I'm also finding that clients are showing more grace, through the pandemic. I think that we're all sharing the same struggles. So, if they hear my kids in the background, it's okay, because tomorrow I'm going to hear their kids in the background. So we're kind of able to work in a space that is not as staged, and I think that when I am able to be more authentic about who I am, it translates in my design, and I'm able to be more creative because it feels like my client gets me, and everything about me, not just professional Keisha.
Great. What about you, Monica? How has the pandemic changed how you do your business, and what do you think would be the most long-lasting change?
Well, in the beginning, I was offering, that's the start of me offering e-design, which has become a very popular thing for my business lately. It's a pro and con to everything, as I should say. I'm trying to put it lightly. E-design I love the process, the completing it, but I don't always get to see the end results with e-design. Because some people won't follow through. They'll just purchase it and you're like, what happened? Did you put the pillow there like I asked, or the piece of art that I told you to get?
Monica, can I ask you, what percentage of your business today is now e-design?
I probably get maybe 2 out each, probably get an inkling about at least every month. And I usually give myself about a month to kind of get it all together for them, but I pretty much get about 1 or 2 clients wanting to do that consistently, and it's a labor of love, but I prefer the full install because I want to see all of these things I have in my brain become, an actual fruition. So it's kind of
real.
Right. So that's different, but besides business really picking up, I didn't think I would have this much business during a time where I thought it would be a complete drought. So
everybody we're dealing with it at our digest, all over the country, people are extremely busy. So I'm happy that busyness is trickling down to you three. And Kianda, how has your business been impacted and changed by the pandemic, and what do you feel will be the longest lasting change?
Yeah, I too have experienced business picking up towards the end for me, especially during the time where I was trying to prepare to have the baby, which was interesting. But I would think efficiencies, how I work my business, being able to fit in more, figuring out how to be more creative with presentations and formats like this on Zoom, versus doing them in person, and trying to figure out, well, is this something I want to sustain over time, or do I want to go back to doing things in person? Mm-hmm. So for instance, that Richmond project, that's going to be in Virginia, that's going to be something that we're going to do virtually for the first presentation, which is weird, but I got to just make it work and make sure that she feels comfortable and has all the materials, so forth and so on. And so that's definitely something that's come out of it. Like I mentioned earlier, spending a lot of time in tightening up or revamping my website and making that frontline tool more efficient for me. So there's been some good things to come out of it.
Yeah, presentation.
Yeah.
So we're just about done, and we're going to ask one more question. I just want to ask each of you, why is it important for something like the Black Interior Designers Network to exist, and why is it important for each of you to be part of it? Keisha, we'll start with you.
I think that, we need our community. Myself especially, I think that what Kia has done with Biden has been great, because it's always a platform that you can turn to for inspiration, for camaraderie, for advice. We all get stuck sometime, and just knowing that you're not out here on an island, it makes you sleep better. It really does. I think that she's done a great job of promoting us individually and collectively, of getting the word out about many talented designers across national media platforms. And I think that the work that Biden is doing is very necessary.
And what about you, Monica? Why the BIDN?
I definitely think it's important. Just like I said, to see faces like my own doing great jobs. It's so amazing. Like, you think, oh, I'm following all of these great designers. And then you find out, oh, there is another person, or there's another person, and that they're doing these wonderful partnerships and collaborations with brands. It just kind of gives you more inspiration and the push to say, hey, maybe I had that in the back of my mind to want to do that too. And it definitely is achievable. So it's just always, it's like the superpower, like that, somebody just patting you on the back, like, hey, you can do it. When you see your colleagues getting it done and making things happen, it kind of gives you fuel as well to know that, hey, what I'm doing is not crazy, and it all has a great end to this whole thing. So BIDN has definitely just helped me stay inspired more.
Yeah,
So
I also think that like it's a safe, for lack of a better term, it's a safe space. You can ask this community for help and questions and advice, and they're not gonna, you don't have to worry about those issues, if you know what I mean.
Right.
You can just, you're gonna get what you need, and you don't have to, you can exhale in the process. You don't have to feel anxious about it.
Right.
What about you, Kianda?
I mean, I definitely agree with Monica and Keisha. It's, I remember I started my business in 2018. I attended the conference then. That's where I actually first met Keisha, even though I had been following and knew of Keisha through a lot of mutual friends prior to that. But it was an opportunity to really connect with people that I started to follow on Instagram in person. And I feel like I was under a rock. I must have been. It's like I've been in the industry for 15 years at that time and didn't know anybody, at least no one of color, not really. So, and that's just because of the networks and environments that I was in at the time. But when I went out on my own, I definitely felt like I needed that net and that community to help me feel more confident in what I was doing. And so I found that very beneficial. And Miss Nakia McSwing, I can't say enough about her. She has been just everyone's cheerleader. Like when you doubt yourself, she's the one that's sitting there like, no, you're dope, sis. I don't know why you don't see that. So, I've always have love for her for that. So yeah, it's definitely been beneficial and really heartwarming to have that community to support us.
Well, I want to end our chat today by saying thank you to all three of you. I want to say thank you to Kianda Powell, to Monica Jacobs Driscoll, and Keisha Gilchrist. I feel like I just met you, but I already feel like I'm part of this sisterhood, even though I'm a man. It's so wonderful speaking with you. I'm thrilled about the work that the BIDN is doing, and I'm of course thrilled about the work that ArcDigest is doing with the BIDN. Our Iconicon last year was one of the biggest, major successes of ArcDigest and Condé Nast for quite a long time. And I know that we're going to be doing another Iconicon later this year. That's in the works, and we're thrilled for that to be happening. So I want to thank you all, thank you three, keep up the good work. And I think I want to end by saying that at a time where we often hear a lot of bad news about Black people, African Americans, we often hear sob stories or whatever. It's so wonderful to see three women thriving and succeeding and having great lives and being mothers and being partners and being daughters. I know that it's a lot and it's a burden we all carry, and you three are doing it with grace and beauty. So thank you. My name is David Kaufman. I'm the Global Digital Director of Architectural Digest, and I want to thank you all for joining us today with the BIDN. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
David.